Welcome, Richard. So excited to have you here. I was
Thank you.
first introduced to you in the Better with Paul live probably a few months ago. I don't think it was
That's
weeks, it was
right. Yeah.
definitely months ago. And I
Yeah.
was really intrigued. There were other people that were on the live, but I was really intrigued by your engagement, the things that you were saying. And I said, oh my goodness, I have to reach out to this gentleman and connect with him. So we're getting him twice, guys, just to let you know. He's on our Facebook Live today, and he's going to be on our Navigating the Customer Experience podcast, and his episode should hopefully be released in August. So welcome, Richard.
Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to this one. I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you, Monique.
Excellent. So could you share with us a little bit about sales? Sales is a big thing for most organizations now, and they're trying to pivot during this, pandemic. Let's say
Mm.
they didn't have much digital presence, and they're looking to basically migrate into that space, and they're looking to use LinkedIn because everybody is now, LinkedIn is the new best thing to jump on
Yes.
because it's untapped to some extent, but it's also strategic in terms of getting your prime audience, especially if you're in a business, you're a B2B company. What would
Mm.
be maybe two or three tips that you would give to somebody who is jumping into this space? What do they need to know?
That's a great introduction to it. And that's really the thing with LinkedIn. It is very untapped. It's purely because not so many people use it for content creation and for promotion and things like that. I think what's really crucial is that people are recognizing now the criticality of online selling and getting sales right, because we're in a tough time. We're about to hit the biggest recession in best part of 100 years, and oxygen for companies is sales. And you can have all the other functions firing well, but if there are no sales, you're in massive trouble. So it's been a very interesting time for me. I've literally just about finished the biggest month on record for my company. It's been so busy because so many people need help with selling, but also specifically with LinkedIn. So you're absolutely
Yeah.
right. My strong suggestion to everyone is, if you're especially in the B2B space, you really should be, the refreshing news is you don't have to try and force it through Facebook anymore if you're online. LinkedIn is where literally all of the people you will ever do a deal with are currently resided. And the nice thing is, over the last 10 or so years, everyone's got a profile on LinkedIn. But classically, as we've come to be used to, it's just very much used for resumes and recruiters and looking for jobs and things like that. And it's been left alone. It's kind of fallow. But in the last couple of years, since really 2008 and 17, it's very much become a content place. And to give people a sense of where we really are now with LinkedIn, just to show people how far we've come, they're about to release the beta of LinkedIn Stories. That's where we are.
Really?
Yeah. So,
Wow, they're
so you
really
can, that's where we're at. And people are like, really? With a video on LinkedIn? No, video, they flipped the switch on that in 2017. You can do pretty much everything. So we've all got live streaming, you've got documents, images, and so on. The versatility is really coming rapidly. Is it as robust and as glitch free as the likes of Facebook? No chance. It's a million miles off. It's really glitchy, but the truth is we're getting it. And the big win for people, before I give you a couple of tips here, the big win needs to be understood. On all these platforms, you have hundreds of millions of users. The difference with LinkedIn is the same as with TikTok, which is why it's also doing well, is that you have huge amounts of viewing from hundreds of millions of people, but relatively very few people actually posting any content. So as a result, when you have 3 million pieces of content in a week, rather than billions of pieces of content in a week, served up to 9 billion impressions, it means that a huge amount of people look at your stuff, compared with a few on places like Instagram and Facebook, which are still valid platforms, but just it's so refreshing because this has the context of business, as you rightly said.
Yeah.
So the tips are really simple. What you're going to do well, where you're going to do well, is to make sure that you are showing up with consistency and with frequency to start with. And by showing up, it starts with a piece of content each day. Those people who are maybe perhaps even looking for jobs, share some views or opinions, because aren't you going to get asked that anyway? And now your future employer is actually looking at you. But at the very least, if you're trying to sell something, the way you need to look at it is that your kind of gravity, or the reason why someone will want to show up for your profile, or for your information, or for your company, is a great piece of content. And if you can post something a bit like once a day or so each week, it would really make a difference, because you start getting a lot of people saying, who is this person? Then they're onto your profile, and then they can see what you're about, then they can get in touch and so on. So starting with content's a really good idea, but also it's important to remember that the value really is in messages and peeling people off from checking out content to one-on-one discussions and sales meetings or pitches or whatever. And that really comes out of spending time engaging with people. So you should be on other people's content. You should be engaged in comments. You should be writing intelligent messages to people, not hey, buy my stuff, but starting by being reasonably social. How would you meet someone in real life? You'd say hey. You'd complain about coronavirus. If you're in the UK like me, just before we went live, complain about the weather a bit. And just be normal, And what happens then is that they accept, as a human, they trust you a bit. And that then gives you the earned right to actually gently, organically, and humanly move to a place where a discussion might be had where you can talk about your work. If you go straight away and pitch in 2020, in a world where we're all conditioned that someone pitching at the first message is definitely going to be a spammy salesperson, you'll lose. But if you do it properly, then you get what you deserve, which is people wanting to have conversations with you. And at scale, it's really exciting that I was talking to someone about this yesterday. It's really important to share that the positivity and the keenness to feel like be good on this platform is noticeable compared to on Facebook. There's kind of a trollarity about it, in the sense like people are trolling everywhere, and people like to sit behind their keyboards and write little crass remarks and things like that, but it just happens considerably less by comparison on LinkedIn. People are just being a bit more grown up and serious, so that's a lovely place to work.
Yes, I actually did a podcast with a gentleman the other day, and it was funny. He said, I find that people on LinkedIn are extremely polite. They're like, oh no, it's okay. Don't worry about it. I'm so sorry. They're just like really polite. I don't know what it is. I found it really hilarious.
I think there's two real good reasons, and it's so funny. You're right, but it's so interesting because the truth is everyone's been a bit more grown up, and there's a level of respect because it's a kind of a business context. But I think as well, if you write a comment next to your name, rather than just the picture next to your name, like on Facebook, next to your name, you've got your job title and the company you work for. So you're putting in public, and some people are insane. There are, of course, people who write the wrong things there. Some people will write terrible comments, and you've seen I've seen some awful things recently because of the Black Lives Matter movement. Some people are writing some terrible things, and it's like, you've got your company name right next to you. You've just completely incriminated yourself. So I think a lot of people are being a bit more intelligent, apart from idiots like that, because actually it's like, I'm representing my business here as well. And it just takes it a step further. So yeah, you're absolutely right. There's that level of respect, which is good, because it means if you're going to post content or share things publicly, you can be a little less worried that people are going to, make little comments at you.
Agreed. It's funny. Yesterday, I received a message from a young man. I don't know which part of the world he was from. I guess he connected with me on LinkedIn. And he started out human, like what you said, hi, Yanni, great to connect. And I said, hey, great to connect with you as well. And then he started to ask me how my business has been. And I told him, well, business has been good. I've been working from home. And then he tells me he's into Forex trading. And if he could, of course, no, I know that this is going on some pitch line, right? So I said to him, I'm really not interested in Forex trading. He's like, but wouldn't you like me to explain it to you? I'm thinking after I wrote that first line, he would have backed off. He went on. And I was like, listen, I am well aware of what Forex trading is. I know that it can make you tons of money. I know people who do it for a living, but I personally don't have any passion or desire to be doing that. So I'm not interested. I wish you all the best in your Forex trading. I'm really not interested. I had to get really hard and aggressive with him because he just didn't get that from the first sentence. Yeah,
which is a terrible way of saying, but this is the thing. You will get more and more of this, because what happened, there's the saying, isn't there? Marketers ruin everything. And what's happened with LinkedIn the last 2 years is become this golden place to really get results for a company. I feel, don't hold me to it, but I feel in the next 1.5 to 2 years, we will move through possibly the golden period, because the more people that realize, hey, I could perhaps make some money over here, I could do content over here rather than on Facebook and Instagram as much, especially those trying to do B2C kind of sales as well, and the MLMs and the ones who are trying to, do network marketing and so on, they will start flooding over as they realize there's an opportunity there, and it will slightly ruin it, and it will have the effect of turning off a lot of people from the platform. People are going to leave it because it's like, oh, look at it. And LinkedIn stories is a massive thing. I cannot wait. I'm going to get so many results from it, but it will mean a lot of people are like, you know what, it's turning into Snapchat, I'm not really so interested. And it will turn some people off. What it will also do, which is why I'm kind of putting some urgency in here for people, is it will potentially move some of the more like the slightly more conservative or older generation out. It will have to turn them off, which arguably isn't a bad thing, but arguably isn't a good thing, because historically the people who make decisions for corporates are the ones who are a bit older, and so we don't want to kind of turn off those people so much. But you can't affect it. The truth is, if there's something that can be done to make some cash quick, then people will do it. There's already loads of Bitcoin like pretenders on there, and you know, for every 100 Bitcoin and forex trading people, unfortunately there's only one that's actually any good, making any money, and so we do need to worry about that a bit. It's just
exactly
because it's one of those things where you don't have to be an expert. It's just, you know, it's volatile, you can make some money from it. But I think we should expect that kind of thing anywhere, especially where it's a successful platform. But in the main, it's far less spammy. I don't know if you found the same.
Yes, I agree. I do agree. I find the comments are more intentional, and people give, you know, like if you ask a question or you post something, people give more meaningful responses. Yeah. I almost feel like LinkedIn is the equivalent of some of the Facebook groups that I'm in. Yeah. So whereas I hang out on Facebook, I think when you hang out in specific Facebook groups with like-minded people who have the similar interests as you, and you're all looking to kind of solve the same problems, whether through maybe a technology that you're using. Like I recently joined StreamYard's Facebook community because I figure I'm going to get better value there in terms of utilizing this platform and getting the best out of it than just hanging out, you know, on the regular StreamYard page.
I agree. Yeah, I have a Facebook group that I've run for 5 years called Entrepreneur Business Group. So it's got people in it that have that kind of view of the world. And I agree. And I think that's just the way to do it. And there's a lot of people who complain about the content, even on LinkedIn. But the good news is you can curate your content. If you don't like seeing memes from people, so unfollow them. It's not hard to do. And that exactly. It's like there was someone the other day who was complaining. He was like, oh no, I'm going to start getting all of these cute LinkedIn stories. So unfollow the people who put out the cute LinkedIn stories, and then you'll just get the ones you want. And it's nice because you can control what you get, which is still valuable.
Yeah. So Richard, selling is hard, and sometimes you get 20 no's before you get one yes. What is your advice to someone in sales or even an entrepreneur that does their own selling? How can they stay motivated? Keep on getting no's, you know, it doesn't help you to keep pushing forward.
It's hard, and I've been through it. My first job 17 years ago was selling digital marketing, actually. So in 2003, it was very new, but I was cold calling. I was on the phone, and our job was to call all day long to CEOs of businesses and try and sell them. And it was very difficult because, you know, the human animal, when they receive when they see something that's unknown, they typically have a distrust until they feel a bit more familiar or safe around it. So you naturally have barriers up when you try and call anyone out of the blue like that. So I know that the no's are hard, but the truth is nowadays you can do different things. You can have other approaches. You can work on your cold calling game, and you can make sure that your approaches are softer. The truth is you need to apply a bit of empathy to someone you're reaching out to, and ask yourself how you'd feel if you were to receive an email or a message or a call from someone. What would you respond to? And often I feel salespeople aren't putting that process in play. They're not saying to themselves, would I respond to that? What they're doing is just trying to spam. And we have the benefit of huge volumes of people we can reach out to and pitch. But it doesn't mean you should just spam them all and hope that you get one or two that actually pick it up. The truth is I don't get loads of no's. I basically always get yeses. And rather than be saying that to show off, I would like to say that as a result of a certain process I take. Basically, every single sales call I have is a deal. And the reason why is because rather than trying to have as many calls as I can, I'm trying to have calls with people who are kind of sold already. Mm-hmm. So I have a saying, which is you don't sell to everyone, you sell to those who are sold. And that sounds cute unless I explain it. So what I mean by that is you need to leverage the fact that you have wonderful platforms like LinkedIn to groom, in a better word perhaps is to warm an audience of people, to show them that there's some value here. And we talked about video, for instance. We're using video right now. One of the main reasons why we use video sure is to entertain and to inform, but is also because your audience gets a sense, and this is the human animal again, not the buyer or the job title, not the conscious self. This is the human animal. They get a sense of who that person is. So after a while, they're like, if they see enough of your shows, Unique, they're like, I have a sense of who this person is. And like any celebrity who we watch on telly for long enough, you don't know that person, but you have a sense of who they are, right? You have some familiarity there. And familiarity is really where the human animal derives its trust. And it means that if someone is kind of used to seeing you, they know what you're like, they love that spectacular accent, and they're just used to hanging out watching your show, what happens is even if someone comes along who's superior with their proposition, they just feel used to you, they know you well, so there's a level of trust. And a great example I've used, for instance, is my brother-in-law is a locksmith. So there are other people who live nearer who are locksmiths who probably could give me a better price point. And if I needed a locksmith, it's going to be him. Why? Because he's my brother. No, it doesn't explain it. It's because of a level of familiarity and trust. So people buy from people that they trust. This is to evolve the phrase, people buy people. So what I'm doing with my content is leveraging the fact that rather than contacting one individual at a time throughout the day, I can be warming a multitude of people, literally thousands of people across each 24-hour period. And then those that show an interest, I can welcome them because they tend to self-select. Mm-hmm. So a great example here is on Monday last week, I rolled out a new product I've got. So on the Monday, I announced that I was really excited. I announced that this thing was coming out. And, in 24 hours, I had, I think it's 16,000 views of this post. And I asked, if anyone's interested, I was only looking for a few people because it's a beta launch, and almost 80 people of all of those. I mean, so that's a tiny proportion of 16,000. It's an immensely small amount, but 80, you can't get 80 people self-select and come towards you and say, yes, I've consumed your content, I find you interesting. This is a process that takes a bit longer, but if you're willing to hold your breath and have a bit of patience, combined with good outreach, yes, you might want to call people, and yes, you want to connect with people and send them a message and try and go the direct route as well. That's intelligent, especially if you need cash right away as an entrepreneur who's starting out. But this approach is so powerful because what it does is it means that the ball's in their court in terms of warming themselves. If they like you and they're curious enough, they'll display that by saying, hey, I'm interested, or at the very least they'll check out your profile and demonstrate their curiosity that way, which earns you the right to respond and say, thanks so much, let's talk about it then. And literally the whole of last week was phone calls. That's all I did all week. But they weren't just random phone calls. They're phone calls from people who are like, not just I need this service, but I want this service from Richard, and I followed his stuff and I'm keen on it. And you see, that's the power of what we have nowadays. I wish I had it in 2003. That would have really helped me. But I had to go the long route. So it's crazy to not do it. And the truth is you can't do it literally on day one. You have to earn it. And I've been at this for a couple of years. But days turn into weeks, turn into months, turn into years. And after a while, if you're consistent enough, just like with you with a podcast of 90 odd shows, you become someone who gets trusted after a while. Then when you do ask, people show up and say, yeah, I've been thinking about it and it's just got to be you. So leveraging that fact and kind of almost cashing out on all of that good favor you're putting in is the way to do it. So I think to wrap up, it's really important to make this point that sales and selling, there's a whole spectrum. And it starts at one end from people who just spam and do these irritating comments and won't let you go, like you described earlier, all the way up to a very consultative sell where people go through a really fulfilling experience where they're being helping this person buy. And so I think it's nice to have this set of situations where we're all feeling fulfilled in the process, and it's very achievable. So I suppose just being measured, because you can't just put out content and hope people come to you. You have to kind of help them over the line as well with an ask. But that's what I'm experiencing now. And I certainly prefer it to calling people that don't know me.
It's funny you mentioned that you used to do a lot of cold calls in 2003. What are your views on cold calling now? Would you recommend that should be the strategy that people employ, especially seeing that in most organizations, they're looking at, implementing maybe a work from home process as part of their permanent strategy going forward, not just because of the pandemic. Do you think cold calling should be something that stays, is it still relevant today in 2020 as it was relevant in 2003? And maybe what are 2 or 3 innovative selling strategies that you think people can employ now? Let's say you're an insurance agent or you work in a bank and you're trying to get new accounts. How can you go about getting new customers if the institutions are trying to get people to stay away from their physical spaces, but you still want them to connect with new customers or existing customers? How are they going to do that digitally?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question. And to answer the first bit, the truth is that a lot of people don't like cold callers because the vast majority have a bad reputation. Because most cold callers are in call centers where they're underpaid, they're rewarded if they get sales, and no one wants to do the job. Therefore, they're paid even less. And therefore, it's literally those people who will take any job who do it, which drives it even worse in this vicious cycle. So it's a terrible reputation that space has. But if I had to make $1,000 right now because I need to, pay bills, I'm not going to post on LinkedIn. I'm going to get on the phone because I can have a much more effective approach by getting in touch with someone. But that's going from someone who trains people on how to make phone calls and have done it for a long time. So I appreciate there's a bit of balance required. What's really important to understand is that it's so easy for a lot of people to say cold calling's dead. What they really mean is you can live without cold calling because you have the tools that I've already described, such as LinkedIn and the content-led play and good marketing and so on. But it doesn't mean it's not useful nor irrelevant. One of the businesses I coach is a 9-figure business, and the majority of their business comes in through cold calling. And what's clear is that with good training and doing good research, there's no problem at all. And they don't have the phone slammed down on us. This is a business that has a market capitalization of well over $1 billion. They are a legitimate business in London. They have an world-leading publishing business, product and proposition. And what the people do is, rather than smash the phone all day and just literally read the same script to people, they do good research. And the truth is, every business out there has a phone on their desk because they're willing to receive phone calls. And they have a phone number because they're willing to receive phone calls to the front desk. And there are people who are willing to take those calls if it's useful. And when you navigate your way around the issue of perception of a cold call and say things that are valuable to people and understand how to research and get yourself in the right way through the door to the decision maker, it's a really effective, if not the most effective way to sell, because you are going route one. And if you do it correctly, everyone is more than happy with you. Like, yeah, come on through, no problem. Within seconds, you're speaking into a decision maker. You don't have to warm them up with content over a period of days and weeks. You say the right things. And, I was training people to go from, hi, how can I help, to, yes, here's $8,000 within half an hour, for instance.
Wow.
And doing that requires you to have an amazing proposition, say the right things, research correctly. It's not just the luck of the call. You need to do things correctly. But so people are simply wrong if they say cold calling is dead. What they mean is you can live without cold calling. Do people like cold callers? No, because the majority of cold callers are, it's like saying to people like Facebook ads. No, they don't, because they typically don't work. Do they not work? No, Facebook ads are amazing if you're good at doing them. And it's the same with cold calling. It's amazing if you're good at doing it. So I think that balance is important. And I'm not saying it in the same way as saying, you know, can you make money off MySpace? Oh, you could. I mean, people still use it. I'm not saying it's not like that. It genuinely is very valid nowadays, I think. But I think moving to the online space, those that might have relied on it a bit in the past can understand that. If you mentioned banks and institutions where typically people would come in and see them, for instance, or organize meetings, that may not be able to happen, but it doesn't mean you can't call people and keep them warm. There's a lot of businesses that are, you know, that they need people to actually physically come and visit them to buy something. That's just how they're set up. And they've had a lot of difficulty through the coronavirus. But what they have been able to do is say, do you know what? Those that would otherwise buy if there wasn't a lockdown, rather than just hold our breath until it's passed, let's get in touch. You know, and there's a company I work for instance, who has a client who is an insurance broker. And what they've done is they've bought coffee and they've sent out coffees to potential clients and said, let's buy you a coffee. Because that's what they would do in a meeting generally. And they're not closing deals yet, but they're having phone calls about what notionally they might do in, say, 2021. And it's painful not closing stuff. And some of them do close with intent to do something next year, but you can at least warm things up. And I think that a good use of your time is to go back to people who might buy your things and say, like, what could I do at least to keep them close? And that's a good use of time as well. It might mean that it's quite hard to get sales right now, but you can always warm them up so that you're not starting at, you know, from the standing start when the lockdown starts to pull away.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so looking at ways to connect with them remotely, doing things that you would have normally done if you were doing it face to face, but doing it remotely, and also recognizing that sales may not necessarily close the way how they used to close before, but you still want to remain front and center of mind that when the client does, you know, their resources get pulled back up and they're able to spend the way how they were spending before even better, you are definitely, you know, still forefront of their mind.
But I must add, like, businesses have to be able to adapt. And if it's not this, it'll be something else. And you know, I started working in 2003, and you've got to understand, like, these were good industry portals that we were selling. We were selling marketing that would get you to the search engine and so on. But in the publishing space, and, you know, basically people were making decisions then based on how they did things in the 70s and 80s, it seemed. They're like, no, we'll spend $6,000 on half a page advert in a magazine, but we won't spend $3,000 on a website that will reach 1 million people. There just wasn't this kind of level. It was because it was back then. They're like, come on, the internet, whatever, it's not going to work. So there was persuading people of this revolution, and then through the 2000s, it really shifted. And now you know, you'd be laughed at if you called someone to go into a publication, unless it's in particular industries. And I think what people need to be aware of is if you can't pivot and adapt now, and surely a lot of companies are going to be able to do that. They just are stubbornly hoping that the lockdown will pass. Something else will get you. And it's important to work around these problems. So as much as is possible, it's you know, the responsibility of businesses to find a way. You know, we've been looking at buying a house in the last couple of days. So we've got estate agents doing virtual viewings now. It's not the same, but it beats not being able to do anything at all. And those that are making it work are still selling, because there's plenty of money out there. The people who are struggling now are sure the ones who are losing their jobs and who maybe were in a bit of a difficult place before the lockdown, but there's plenty of people who do have money still, and there's plenty of people who are spending and investing in things. So I think it's everyone's responsibility to adapt and not cry or lament about the harder times. It's called a recession. It's going to be hard. I remember 2008 really well. It was really hard because I was selling events at the time. Everyone was like, no, the first thing I'm going to do is not spend money traveling. There's a recession. Everything's imploding. It was really difficult time. And but so you know, we had to pivot. So we did other things. And I just think that that we don't know how long this will last, and it won't be that lockdown's done by Christmas. There'll be still problems into the new year at least, and so people got to recognize that it's a great idea to be agile, because if you don't practice being agile now, something else will get you in the future.
Yeah, agreed. So good. Such good points, Richard. Okay, Richard, now can you share with us maybe a failure that you've had personally or even professionally that has set you up for later success? Do you have a favorite failure?
A favorite failure? I've never been asked that. That's good. I had a lot of interviews, but not been asked them. Off the top of my head, it's not necessarily my favorite, but it was one I'm proud I did, which backs up the saying that you should be always willing to kill your babies, which sounds awful, but metaphorically, you should be willing to kill. So in 2015-16, I built a course called 8-Step Startup, and it was going to be my flagship product. And I remember I was like, I'm going to do every single thing you need to build a startup. So each of the letters of startup was a different module, and each module had like 12 videos in it. So, and I think it was 73 lessons. So it was everything. And instead of it being ideas from me, because I'd helped startups a lot, it was for me articulating it. But I engaged with best-selling authors, huge business leaders from like Microsoft, Facebook, and so on, and also professors at business schools. So you name it, they're there. So people from like Oxford, Wharton, Harvard. I had like the CEO of Microsoft Australia, best-selling authors like Andrew Ross Sorkin, Seth Godin, all these people. Wow. Like I'd engage with them all. I'd use selling techniques to essentially cold call my way to them and ask for some tips and advice. And the idea was that the course was these videos where it'd be like, right, today I'm going to talk about this thing. And here's a few nuggets and insights from these people. So I'd shared all this stuff. And I worked so hard, but it took me the best part of a year to build it. And I sold a load of it as well. But after some time, I was like, do you know what? The advice isn't as well produced as it could be. I recorded it on some kind of janky camera that wasn't really working very well. And it looked awful. And I was just like, what it was my first practice, really. And the problem is it's the same as when you wait for a bus long enough. You feel like I can't leave the bus stop now, even though it's long overdue. I've invested this time. It's so tempting to stick around with these things. And I was like, it's not the way I want to go. It's not the product I want to have. It's time to let go of it. And I had to cut the cord. And even now, some people will come back to me like, what happened to 8-Step Startup? And I was like, I'm glad it's gone, because it was so embarrassing in hindsight. So it was a failure in so many ways. And it wasn't just like an ego-led failure. It wasn't like a vanity thing. It just wasn't aligned with what I wanted to do anymore. And so it was the right thing to do to let it go and drift off. And they're still out there, the videos. There's like a private playlist on YouTube to those that had bought it. But it just didn't work on, there's a number of other things, but a number of things about that just didn't really work. And I was like, it's better to start fresh. And so my courses, the courses I have now are, shot in HD, in a camera that's not on an angle and things like that. And I'm talking to the camera. It was all my practice, basically, was 2015. So doing a good job. I think you've done one of my courses, you said. So getting that kind of thing right. Now the products I want to endorse and get behind. So I learned a lot from doing it. And I made sales, and that was all very good. But I also learned it was really good to let that go, because I'd invested so much time in it. That if I always often look back at it and think, if I can let that go, I can let anything go that I need to. Rather than being precious and hoarding literally everything you make, be willing to cut the cord if you need to. I hate that phrase, kill your babies, but it essentially was. It was my baby. It was like all I did was this 8-Step Startup thing. And one of the little problems with it, which is a big standout problem for a lot of businesses, is that I branded myself as 8-Step Startup, because that was the course. And so what happened was, instead of being Richard Moore with a course called 8-Step Startup, it was just 8-Step Startup everything. And of course I had my name and things on my profiles, but what happened was, when I killed the course and the website as well, I had nothing. So what I did after that was I pivoted to personal brand, from which I have products. So instead of my actual website was 8stepstartup.com. So I changed that. Now it's therichardmoore.com, within which are all of my products. Because if you kill a product, you've got to be able to live on afterwards. So I don't want to lose all of my following. And I had following for 8-Step Startup, not for my world. And so the group I have on Facebook back in 2015, what the group was called 8-Step Startup. And of course, no one found the group because no one searches for 8-Step Startup. And people were like, what the hell's 8-Step Startup? So when I changed it to Entrepreneur Business Group, everyone's joining it. It makes sense. So just learning that personal brand really was important for leverage was a big thing from that.
Excellent. It's funny you said that too, because when I started the podcast, that's when I rebranded. Before my company's name is Professional Training and Occupational Services, and I rebranded to YaniqueGrant.com. So even though we own the domain name for navigating the customer experience, I redirect everything to YaniqueGrant.com, and everything is housed under the YaniqueGrant.com brand. Regardless of what I do, because at the end of the day, it all boils back down to customer service, customer experience. Everything that I do is a pivot off of that. So I just figured, and people associate me with it.
Exactly. But also in the future, you may choose, because we don't know what we like, you may choose to do something different. Sure. And therefore, I mean, maybe you won't, but if you do, then it will be time to say goodbye to that chapter. But you'll always be Yanique Grant, and you take that part with you as you go. And without question, you must have noticed that if you launch something new, you launch it off the back of the momentum of your own brand. It makes life a lot easier.
True, very true. Okay, Richard. So we've spoken quite a bit now. We're on the tail end of our interview, and I'd like to find out from you, what's the one online resource, tool, website, or app that you absolutely can't live without in your business?
Shall I say something other than LinkedIn? Because that's kind of obvious, isn't it?
Yes.
I'd say LinkedIn is a really good place to operate because you can do so much. Stripe. Stripe's amazing because I receive all my payments there. It's also a very good CRM. What I would say though is that I'm a little old school because I don't have 1,000,001 different apps and things for productivity, but the team and I use Google Drive. And it's just so versatile, and we're all like hand in glove with each other. We all have access to the same things, and like I need that. I've been through a lot of productivity apps before, like to Trello and Basecamp and things like that. I think a close third is the wonderful Melanie Perkins Canva. I think we all use that, don't we?
Yes.
It's really good, and of course, because I'm big on video, Subtitle, who I work with, gives captions, because if 85% of all video online is watched without the sound on, it's kind of wrong to not have captions. So it's a really important thing to have that as well. But it's strange. Something as basic as Google Drive has really served us well. It keeps us super efficient. But it's fascinating nowadays because my video editor and I, we will use Google Drive, but we will communicate through Instagram Messenger and we'll do voice memos. So it's just what people are used to, isn't it? You know, you'll often, and I have my copywriter who works on my newsletter, we will use Facebook Messenger for no reason other than that's just what we use. And I have one client on WhatsApp and another one on LinkedIn. It's just like everyone has their own flavor. But I do think that a Google Drive is a big help, and probably the thing that's the tool that's most valuable for both clients and team is voice memos. It's my thing. It's just brilliant because you're so much more efficient. You can get 3 messages out in the time it takes to type 1. You don't crash into people when you're walking down the street because you just talk and look at the same time. More important, it's true, you don't crash into lampposts and things. But what's really important is that when it comes to warming up an audience, engaging with people, speaking to people, why would you text when you can put emphasis and dynamics and emotion in? Like, this is why none of your audience are sitting right now reading an article of you and I, you know, typing responses to each other. We're here on video because we get so much more and the human comes through. So that's why voice memos as a way of communicating in the messages are absolutely the best way to go, in my opinion.
All right, sounds good. So we'll have all of that information so that people can utilize. I think those are some really good tips. Could you share with us maybe 1 or 2 books that have had a good impact on you? Maybe a book that you read recently or something that you read long ago that still stands with you to this day?
The book, the number 1 book, and this is as a business leader, I can talk about biographies and things like that. And Shoe Dog is my best biography, which is the biography of Phil Knight from Nike. The Everything Store by Brad Stone, like that Brad Stone's book on Amazon is spectacular as well. But the book that I've it's been my favorite book for like 6 or 7 years isn't actually a business book. It's Seneca's On the Shortness of Life. So this is thousands of years ago. This Stoic philosopher wrote this basically pamphlet. It's like 60 pages or so, and I dip into it because I don't read books properly. I read like bits at a time, but I dip into it like once a month, and I strongly urge anyone at any walk of life doing anything to get this book, because he really nails the importance of understanding the value of time. And the first couple of chapters alone are in. I remember the first day I read it, because I remember I was sitting on a sofa and I couldn't read much because I kept putting it down, going like, "Wow!" Like it was blowing my mind. Right. Because he talked about time in a bit like an economy, and some of the really important quotes in there along the lines of how we basically spend our time like we're immortal, like we've got loads of it. And we spend our money like we've got only a finite amount, whereas we can make as much as we like. We can always make more money. And we're so like tight with our money by comparison to our time. We will waste our time. And he says that, life is long if you know how to live it. And there's some really, really profound things in it. It's a reason why he's, still read thousands of years later. And I think he was like the mentor of Marcus Aurelius as well, because Meditations is an amazing book too. But if I had one book to lead me, it's actually that. And I read voraciously, but that has always been there. So it's a terrible idea to not read his book, because you also come out of it realizing you don't have much time, because it's not, for instance, I'm 40 this year. It changes your view on things. That it's not like, I'll probably live to like 90, right? No, I might not. And so it makes you kick on and get on with your work, because you don't know what you've got, and then really value things a bit more. That by a light year is the book.
All right, very good. So Seneca, right?
Yes, On the Shortness of Life.
All right, sounds awesome. Now, Richard, can you share with us what's one thing that's going on in your life right now that you're really excited about? Either something that you're working on to develop yourself or your people.
Well, I don't want to be too pitchy, Yannick, but so I've had a lot of courses for a while. There's kind of two things, if I may. One is the Basics of LinkedIn course. That's had a kind of a revival lately on Udemy, Udemy, which is like, I think it's the #1 place for courses online. If you look up basics or LinkedIn basic courses, there's like 10,000 results, and mine is the highest rated course. I'm really so touched by all the amazing reviews. I really, really appreciate it. And like all the messages and things, and people really winning as a result of this course. So I really, really, that's a baby I won't be killing, let's say.
I did it. So I can testify. I'm not saying this just because I'm interviewing him, but I did it. And I literally I remember I watched the Better with Paul, and I started doing Richard's course like 11 o'clock Friday night.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And I didn't go to my bed until like 3 a.m. the next morning. And when I got up the next day, I went on it again to finish off. Really? And it was kind of those courses that, even though it was short, you wanted to kind of just take notes and go back and forth to your profile and make sure it was optimized to match what he was saying. And it was just really, it kept me engaged the entire time, and it really helped me out.
Viewing, that's good. Well, the thing is, I'm all about practical, actionable stuff you can actually do. The last thing I wanted was a course where it's like my sob story and like my background for hours on end. You wanted to get on with it. But the other thing I'm working on is like a steroids version of that. So as well as these small courses, which you can just do in your own time. And I also do, because I do consulting as well. I have a thing called the LinkedIn Client Accelerator, which I'm so proud of, because a lot of people have said, I want the coaching, but I also want the modules and like taking me through things. And I think there's a real sweet spot for me, because I know I'm good with LinkedIn, and there's a lot of LinkedIn trainers out there, and they show you how to get engagement and get posts moving and things like that and optimize your profile. But my sweet spot is selling and closing. So when you put the two together, the whole point of this accelerator is that it sure helps you understand how to position yourself and put across a message in LinkedIn, but also shows you how to uncover and close leads, because ultimately, if you get a proper return from this kind of thing, it makes it worthwhile. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. That and moving house potentially as well. My wife was on Saturday, she said, let's look at a property. So we're suddenly in lockdown looking at houses as well, just for fun, because you've got to keep busy, right?
Yeah, agreed. All right. So lots of exciting things happening. All right. So our last question to you, Richard, is during times of adversity or challenge, do you have a quote or saying that you will revert to? It kind of helps to keep you refocused and just get you back on track.
That's a good one. Yeah, there's some things I draw from. I think a lot of people have had adversity in their world, and I've had some tough things happen. Like best part of 10 years ago, it'll be 10 years ago, I think next year, my mum passed away. And so like learning from that kind of thing is really important. She never complained as well. It's like, so having that kind of attitude is great. Also understanding that I'm going to be affected all the time by things that are wanting to pull me away from my productivity. So you can't see it, but at the bottom of this screen, I have a very small Post-it note, it's about this big, and it has the word nope, as in no, on it. So, and that word, people say, well, why have you got negativity around you? But that word is a reminder that if ever I want to go off piste or get distracted by something, or if I'm getting pulled in a certain direction, I look at that, I'm like, remember, you have a task to do, which is deliver for your clients, for your family. It's a lot easier when you have children and a wife to make sure you're showing up responsibly each day. But there's been a lot of adversity in the past, and I'm very lucky to have all the things I've got. I'm exceedingly lucky to live where I am, to have the faculties I have. I've won the lottery in that respect. And so as a result, I need to make the most of it because, time is short.
Agreed. Life is short and tomorrow is not guaranteed. So what you can do with today, try to maximize on it to the best of your ability.
Which is why you've got to come on podcasts like this.
Thank you. So that's a wrap for today. Until we see you on our podcast next week on Navigating the Customer Experience. So thank you, Richard, for taking time out of your very busy schedule. Guys, if you don't follow him, he's Richard Moore on Facebook. He is the Richard Moore on Instagram and Richard Moore on LinkedIn. You need to follow him because he is awesome. His content is really good. He has great nuggets consistently. It's fresh. It's new. It's, it's not repetitive. If you listen to him last week and you listen to him this week, you won't be like, but he said that last week. No, he's always finding new and innovative ways to get the information across and make you reframe or think about what you're trying to do in a different way, which I think is brilliant. Yes. So thank you, Richard, for sharing your greatness with us.
You're so kind, and it's hard to follow the amazing things you're talking about. So thank you so much, and it was a pleasure being on here. I can't wait till next week.
Yes, you too. So have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye. Bye, everyone.